NASA has put really kind of ambitious deadlines on these missions. Something like this, where one of their main suppliers is exploding rockets on its launch pad, has the real potential to impact those missions and how long it takes to get humans back to the moon, and definitely to get humans back with a permanent base on the moon.
When a Blue Origin rocket exploded in a test launch, it created one of the biggest rocket explosions in history. And it also set back Jeff Bezos' space ambitions. And this is why. Hi, I'm Mhari Aurora. At 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday night, a huge fireball lit up the sky at Cape Canaveral. The massive New Glenn rocket, built by Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin company, had exploded. It's a huge setback for Bezos' passion project. Luckily, he's not short of funds, as he's acknowledged before.
I want to thank every Amazon employee and every Amazon customer, because you guys paid for all of this. So
Bezos has spent at least $8 billion personally funding Blue Origin. Just this week, NASA announced the important role Blue Origin would play in its moon base, but that could now be in jeopardy. So, how damaging is this for Blue Origin, and what does this mean for its rivalry with Elon Musk's SpaceX? To talk about the fallout from the explosion, I've been speaking to Sky's science and technology correspondent, Mickey Carroll. To give us some context here, what actually went wrong? Why did it explode? And why was the explosion so big?
So this was a firing test for New Glenn. Now, New Glenn is Blue Origin's huge cargo rocket.
Okay.
And they were testing out, they weren't launching it at all. They were just testing out the kind of engines and things like that. And it's crucial that this was a firing test because it means the rocket was likely fully fueled. So there was a lot of rocket fuel in there to set alight. And New Glenn itself is huge. It's 97 metres tall. And so the kind of size plus the rocket fuel has resulted in this massive explosion. Now, Blue Origin has said it experienced an anomaly.
I mean, that's the understatement of the century, right?
Yeah, I think you kind of expect an anomaly to be a small mistake, not a massive explosion. Yeah. And Jeff Bezos has said it's too early to kind of tell exactly what went wrong. But with something like this, there will be an investigation because it doesn't just affect Blue Origin. It doesn't just affect Jeff Bezos. This has the potential to affect the US's space ambitions.
Totally. Okay, so the explosion was massive, partly because there was so much fuel on board. I get that. What I don't understand is, in relation to some of the other rockets we see, how big is this rocket? How big of a deal is this?
So New Glenn is humongous, and it's humongous for a reason. So when you see something like SpaceX's rockets that are taking astronauts up to the moon, they're kind of very limited in what they can carry. Every kind of kilogram of extra weight is hundreds of thousands of pounds. Blue Origin's New Glenn is designed to carry heavy cargo to space. That's what they've always wanted to do. And they took a long time to get to this point. They were kind of working on other projects, but really this is what they wanted. And they were massively delayed in releasing New Glenn. It actually only launched for the first time last year. It's only flown 3 times. But their whole kind of business plan is to help NASA take stuff up to the moon and into orbit. So it has to be ginormous in order to do that.
Okay, and you say it's only flown about 3 times, and one of those times it didn't work, is that right?
Yeah, so it took a long time to get off the launch pad. But actually when it did, it was pretty successful. I mean, it had problems, but you'd expect that because it was kind of launching for the first time, that sort of thing. And so it's flown 3 times up till last month. Last month, they sent New Glenn up and it experienced an engine failure, which meant it launched some satellites into the wrong orbit.
Oh.
So one of its jobs is to take the Amazon LEO satellites, so the low Earth orbit satellites that will help Amazon spread internet around the world. It's their competitor to SpaceX's Starlink, is to take those satellites into orbit. And you shouldn't really put stuff in the wrong orbit because it messes up everyone else who's also trying to put things around the Earth's orbit.
Right.
So when that happened, New Glenn got grounded by the regulators. And this was the first time they were allowed to test it again since that happened last month. And it has resulted in a huge explosion. I mean, residents nearby said their houses were shaking, the sky turned orange. This isn't just a kind of small mistake.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so when it comes to the damage, right, we don't know all the details yet, but from what we do know, in terms of the extent of the damage, it wasn't just the rocket, right? Do you even know how much that would cost to replace?
So yeah, it wasn't just the rocket. I mean, we're talking about the kind of launch pad and the buildings around it. It took the fire crews that were fighting this blaze kind of hours to put it out. And in terms of the cost of that, the rocket alone, although Blue Origin hasn't said specifically how much it costs, there are reports that it's around $100 million just for one section of the rocket. So
one section?
So the kind of the first stage booster. So this is a hugely expensive rocket, let alone when you take into consideration the launch pad and the other buildings as well.
Well, I suppose maybe people might think to themselves, well, if anyone's going to pay for it, Jeff Bezos is the one that's got the cash, right? Talk me through for a second, what is Blue Origin? For people who might not have heard of it or, don't really know what that means, what is it?
So Blue Origin is Jeff Bezos' space company. It was launched in 2000, and it kind of came along at a time when a lot of the kind of tech bros in Silicon Valley were starting to think about space. And he has always wanted it to be a cargo carrier. So that being said, it's also become famous for taking tourists up to space.
Yes,
so you
like
might
Katy
remember,
Perry?
exactly,
Yeah.
Katy Perry putting the ass back into astronaut, as she said last year.
Yeah.
Those flights are launched by Blue Origin. But what they want to be is the cargo supplier for space. And I guess it's sort of like the Amazon vans, right? They've got a niche. Mm-hmm. They're going to be, instead of just delivering to your house, they're delivering satellites to low Earth orbit. They're delivering moon buggies to the moon. That sort of thing is their ambition.
Okay, and speaking of the moon, we know that Blue Origin won some kind of deal contract thing with NASA not too long ago. Is that right? And I suppose the question is, will this explosion impact that?
Not too long ago is almost an understatement because it was only on Tuesday. So it was very, very recently. NASA had this kind of really exciting press conference, to be honest, maybe just for space nerds like me. But they were announcing their details of the lunar base that they're building on the moon's south pole. And as part of that, they announced who would be taking what up, which contracts had been awarded to who. And Blue Origin was commissioned to take up the moon buggies to the moon base, which will help astronauts kind of ferry themselves around. They'll also help explore the moon. They also are expected, Blue Origin are expected to later this year take up a prototype lunar lander to the moon as well. I mean, the timelines on these missions they don't have much wiggle room anyway. And NASA has put really kind of ambitious deadlines on these missions. Something like this, where one of their main suppliers is exploding rockets on its launch pad, has the real potential to impact those missions and how long it takes to get humans back to the moon, and definitely to get humans back with a permanent base on the moon.
Right, okay. So that's definitely put a spanner in the works. Also, a spanner in the works in relation to the rivalry between Blue Origin and SpaceX, right? So we've got Elon Musk on one side with SpaceX, Jeff Bezos on the other side with Blue Origin. So presumably maybe Elon Musk is popping the champagne?
Yeah, I was really interested this morning because we hear so much about this kind of billionaire space race and the rivalries between them. And Elon Musk started tweeting, as he does. He put out a couple of different posts. In one, he said this was most unfortunate, rockets are hard, which you can interpret in a number of ways. Either he's actually being sincere or he's kind of sticking the knife in a little bit. Yeah. But he also said he was very sorry and he hopes they get back to it soon. And I think probably what's happening here is Elon Musk has exploded a lot of rockets in quite a dramatic fashion. We've seen it close airspace over their launch pads, that sort of thing. He at least knows how Jeff Bezos is feeling right now. So maybe there's a little bit of sympathy there. But I mean, certainly they're competing for very similar contracts with people like NASA. So it's not going to be a sad day for SpaceX.
When it comes to the wider conversation about the space race, what does the space race mean to the likes of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk? Why are we now suddenly feeling like we've got a kind of renaissance of the space race with these two big, powerful, rich men?
The space race, I think, is really interesting for kind of everyone because you can look at it in terms of money, we've suddenly kind of got the technology to expand where we're able to make money into space. If you're Elon Musk, you want to dominate the kind of low Earth orbit satellites that mean that people will rely on you for internet. Jeff Bezos is trying to compete with him on that. There's also kind of warfare potentially. So if you're able to put things in orbit, you can potentially help with the kind of geopolitical side of things. There's national space races that are happening at exactly the same time. And for someone like Elon Musk to be able to provide support for the US when they're trying to beat people like China, will put him in a really good position and make him a lot of money. But I think something that I found really interesting during that NASA press conference on Tuesday was that lunar base that they're building with the help of people like Blue Origin and SpaceX. That's part of the space race, and they were fairly upfront about that. So it's going to have this lunar base. It's going to be hundreds of square miles wide across the moon's south pole, and the perimeter of that, it looks like, will be the kind of the border of where people like China can't go. So we're already staking claims to areas of the moon that we want to explore. And so it's really important for us to get there first so we can say, nabbed this bit, this is our perimeter, you can't cross here. So people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are a really important part of that.
Okay, so explain this thing to me then. You can go to space and basically claim a part of the moon, let's say, and then other countries can't go there. Because I thought you weren't allowed to essentially claim pieces of land on a moon or another planet, but presumably you can?
So there are various accords about what you can and can't do.
Okay.
There's now something called the Artemis Accords, which is obviously linked to the Artemis mission, which puts humans on the moon. And that's a NASA-led mission. So it's a US-led mission. And as part of the Artemis Accords, people will be able to use the lunar base and explore kind of scientific aspects of that and everything that you would want to do. But not every country has signed the Artemis Accords.
Right.
So the suggestion is that Russian astronauts or Chinese astronauts on the moon won't be able to use that base, and therefore if they say the base is hundreds of square miles wide, then they're not going to be able to cross into that perimeter either.
How big of a blow is this to Blue Origin, and where does it leave them now?
This is a massive blow to Blue Origin because New Glenn is really expensive. I mean, we think it costs around or over $100 million at least. So just in terms of monetary value, that's huge. It's also a blow because New Glenn, this rocket, is supposed to be reusable. So that would bring the cost down. Also, you could argue makes it more environmentally friendly, if you can talk about that in space terms.
Indeed.
So the fact that it's blown up obviously means they can't reuse elements that they might have wanted to, and they'd been quite successful at that. So that's going to be a bit of a blow for them as well.
And when it comes to the competition between SpaceX and Blue Origin, is the understanding that it's good for the space community, for science, for progress, that they are fighting this out? Does that make them both better?
Yes, definitely. So the fact that SpaceX and Blue Origin are fighting this out can only ever really be a good thing because they're driving down each other's costs through competition. They're also experimenting on different things. So they're testing out new technology. They're also, although we talk about them all the time, there's a lot of other companies that are doing like massive work. There's people that are trying to mine meteors. There's people that are developing new kind of hoppers on the moon. There's people that are developing space food. All of these companies are sort of vying for contracts with people like NASA. And every time there's a bit more competition, it pushes them to be better and also, crucially, cheaper.
Thanks for watching today's edition of This Is Why. Now you can get in touch with your thoughts on today's episode and share ideas for future episodes by emailing why@sky.uk. And if you want to watch more of our videos, tap over on the right or tap the button in the middle to subscribe to the Sky News YouTube channel.